Well, folks, it is Friday, the 9th of February, and yes, a lot is going on in the world, and we'll definitely be getting to a number of the things that are happening in the world and all along those lines, because there's definitely a lot of news can be talked about and all in that space, including some travel bans and some other things that are taking place. But before I get to that, I was going to tell folks that I did get a chance yesterday to go to a play performance that was held here in Durham, North Carolina. So if you get a chance to go see Ain't Too Proud, go check it out. It is an amazing play about the life and times of the Temptations. I didn't know, but currently there are 27 members of the Temptations that have been in that group. But this was about that story of their life, the story of their rise to fame, being a major force in the Motown era and all along those lines. And it definitely, temptation is what got a lot of the Temptations as well, because definitely people have forgotten about the cancer and other things that cost some of those people their lives, as well as some of them even dealing with things like suicide and other things as well. And as a matter of fact, the one of the founders of the that particular group, as a matter of fact, the main founder, he lost his son to a construction accident, and we were talking about construction earlier. So a lot of that was touched on, just like the whole notion of war songs, because that song "War," what's it good for? Apparently was originally supposed to be a Temptation song, but it was not a Temptation song. It was given to, I believe the gentleman's name was Edwin Starr, and became one of his big hits and one of his truly only maybe one or two hits, because he was definitely one of those folks that didn't have as much of a catalog as the Temptations did, and all along those lines. But like I said, if you get a chance to see Ain't Too Proud, if it comes to your city, definitely go check it out. It is a traveling Broadway show. So I did get a chance to go visit it and check it out with some friends of mine and all along those lines last night. But let's get to the news and all in that space. But definitely, like I said, there's a lot of things taking place in the world and all in that kind of way. In Pakistan, they are having curfews. Curfews have been ordered in Islamabad as Imran Khan's party takes a shocking lead. So definitely that is going on. And of course, there are allegations about rigging the elections in that part of the world as well. So it seems like this whole notion of people not being satisfied with the elections, thinking that the elections have been rigged, and a number of things along those lines isn't just a U.S. thing. It's also something that goes on in other parts of the world as well. And in the invasion of Gaza, border city looms as Biden calls Israel's offensive over the top. So that is what President Biden is saying as Israel strikes Rafah after the U.S. warning against expanding ground offensive to that overcrowded city. And is conducting its own new airstrikes targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels. So that is something that is going on. And over there in Ukraine Zelensky takes one of his biggest gambles yet by replacing his top military person and all along those lines. And I'm sure Sasha will be talking about that on the show Ukraine, Russia, and China. And definitely that will be coming up in the news as well. Iranian takes 15 hostages on a Swiss train and was shot dead by the police. So definitely looks like the Swiss police have killed an Iranian asylum seeker who took 15 hostages on a train and all along those lines. So definitely that is something else that is going on in the world. And Prince Harry has settled a case against a UK tabloid publisher that hacked his phone. That's right, folks that are dealing with hackings all around the world, and it looks like he got a substantial payout in a phone hacking case against a certain UK tabloid. So definitely, and as a matter of fact, it looks like he's settled with the Mirror Group. And I'm thinking that might be one of the ones that Murdoch owns, but folks can correct me on that and all along those lines. And if you're into parts of the world that have interest in zodiacs, apparently this is the year of the dragon, and we'll have to find out what the year of the dragon is supposed to symbolize, but that is what Chinese zodiacs are saying and all along those lines. And lava is flowing over the roads and burst water pipes after that eruption in Iceland. So definitely there are weather concerns in the world as well. So definitely a lot of people are seeing that going on and seeing and making reactions to that as well. And Hezbollah has fired 30 rockets at Israel in retaliation for the reported hit on their top officer. So, like I said, a lot of things are going there in the whole notion of the Middle East and all along those lines and everything in that way. And the Labor has got a 28 billion pound green policy that is out there, but apparently there might be a U-turn on that. So maybe they're going to change some of their views on that. But definitely the Labor Party in the UK is dealing with how they're going to deal with climate change as well. So that's just definitely something that folks are paying attention to and looking at in the world and all in that space. So definitely a lot of people are looking at a number of these things that are taking place and trying to get their statements on them and see how they are feeling about them in one way or the other. Um, Apparently, the tallest matchstick Eiffel Tower has been disqualified by Guinness over the matches. So I guess somebody was trying to build a replica of the Eiffel Tower, and apparently they fine folks at Guinness didn't think that it was worthy of being in the Guinness Book of World Records. So apparently, it was disqualified. Maybe they were using the wrong matches. Maybe the matches weren't the right kind. I'm sure Rick Rosner will have some thoughts around that because, maybe he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for all I know and all along those lines. But we'll get to him and see what he's got to say about that and everything. So definitely that is something that's interesting in the news. Let me get you to some United States news, and I'm going to get to one news that was in the items that I was going to mention, and I had mentioned it to Rick, and I'll get it to definitely Sasha and Nick as well, and we'll see who else is here as well. But it looks like there is the whole case of what's going on in the notion of kicking Trump off the ballot, because even liberal justices are apparently skeptical about that. And Van Jones has called the Supreme Court losing a game of chicken with Trump. So apparently he's thinking that this is like that old fashioned game of chicken. And Biden has tried to lay some concerns about his age, and he tried to lay rest age concerns, but apparently in his responses, he may have actually made the situation worse because it may have raised even more concerns and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And have been 7 indicted in the attack on the 2 New York Police Department officers in Times Square. So there has been released body cam footage that shows the migrants' violent attack on those officers. So definitely that is going on. And there have been, like I said, 7 indicted, but they are searching for 3 more suspects. So, and like I said, on yesterday, I believe it was, Trump won the Nevada Republican caucuses. So he's still over there rolling in these victories. So I know that sometimes folks are wondering if we're heading to that rematch, and many people are thinking that we're heading to that rematch and all along those lines. But I know that there are others that are thinking that Nikki Haley may find a way to still get the nomination, and that maybe Mr. Trump won't be there. And there's some people even that are saying that maybe Mr. Biden won't be there. But right now, it does look like we're heading toward that rematch. I just don't see it not happening. But hey, I've been wrong before on a number of things. And apparently, New York special election candidates are clashing over the border crisis and abortion. So they are debating around that as they're trying to fill that seat for George Santos's congressional seat. So they're debating over those issues, and those might be issues that are important in the general election as well. And Arizona has prevented a recount nightmare scenario with a bipartisan fix. So yes, folks can work in the bipartisan way and all along those lines, even in other states, and hopefully they can do that in this area as well. And Michael Mann, a climate scientist, has won a defamation case. So yes, even climate scientists can win a defamation claims and all along those lines. So renowned climate scientist Michael Mann has been awarded $1 million in his suit and all along those lines because he was actually going against a right-wing blogger. So I guess there were some bloggers that were thinking that climate change isn't real and they wanted to challenge him. And apparently he took it to the courts and he won in that particular case. So I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner, and I'm going to bring in Nick Palveda and others as well. One of the things that I was curious about, and I see that he won that case and everything. So that's one of the things that I was curious about was the nature of these defamation claims. And if you got any thoughts about that, and one of the things that I told Rick I was going to mention was this whole travel ban that involves some very popular places. But before I get to that, your thoughts about defamation cases, Nick.
Well, the thing is, they've expanded it. They made it easier. You used to have all these burdens of proof, and defamation cases were dead on arrival in any court. But now it's changed. The game landscape has changed quite a bit. For people who want to stay away from defamation cases, please do not defame the person who is speaking, or they call it ad hominem arguments. In other words, you start saying, well, Mark is a blah, 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 Mark is a blah. Okay, don't do that. Attack the argument, not the person. And then I'll keep you relatively clean from defamation suits. The real problem that we're seeing right now, especially on the social media, is you immediately, when you don't like somebody, you go after them and you start defaming them, not the argument, but them. And then you open yourself up to a defamation suit today. Instead, what you do is do not go after them, attack the argument. Because I argue a lot on LinkedIn right now. I'm arguing against this person who wants to repeal 401k plans, but I do not insult the person who's making it. I insult their arguments, why it's a bad argument. You see what I mean? And that'll keep you clean. I think, as I told my office, I said 90% of my job is to keep people out of court. It's not a good place to be unless you're Donald Trump, and then he swims in it. But if you're a sewer rat, then go swim in the sewer. But if you're not a sewer rat, stay away from the sewer.
So what about it defaming Trump? I whenever I get mad at Trump, I'll go on Twitter and say some really scurrilous stuff.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, see, political figures actually have a somewhat of an exemption in terms of that, which really shocked me that a guy like Trump, who purportedly has billions of dollars, would put himself in a political arena and allow people to use the political exemption to basically, go after him. But you can cross a line, and all of a sudden you could have a defamation suit. It's not unusual, but he's a political figure, and that's a whole different cat. But I would still, even on Trump, I would attack more his arguments than the man. But every now and then, the man is the argument. So look at Joe Biden. He made some really bad gaffes the other day. He was talking about the president of Mexico. He should have been talking about the president of Egypt. They cited him for not remembering stuff. And here's the reality of Uncle Joe. When I turned 60, my doctor said, well, you're 60 years old. You know what happens? What? Things start breaking down. That's true. And we hit 80, you start on a decline. And I think Joe is over 80. So I don't think there's going to be a debate, because Joe doesn't want to debate because he'll show his age. And Trump don't want to debate because he'll show he's stupid. So between them, I don't think you're going to see.
So what about, is death? You can say whatever you want about dead people, right?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Why do you ask such a good question, Rick? Because the real problem with dead people, they may have estate claims. You see what I mean? In other words, even though they're dead, they might, and I say might, I haven't not seen too many cases on it, where the estate sues you because you're defaming, let's say, Elvis Presley, for example, and you're showing some pornography with it that didn't exist, etc. What lives beyond the person is actually the estate of. Now, with that, they'd have to open up a probate court proceeding, bring back the estate and the person represents, and file the suit. So it's a lot of work for the attorney, because you can't just jump up and sue. Where if you have a live person, all you have to do is phone call, file the complaint, and you're good to go. So that would be very, very interesting.
No, but it could be interesting, because as I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to mention it again, I did go yesterday to see that play about the Temptations, Ain't Too Proud and everything. And yes, they definitely touched on a lot of the things that were very problematic with that group, because there were several members that were facing their demons, whether that was drugs, whether that was abuse of women, or whether that was a couple of other things. So a lot of those folks are gone. Even the founder of the group, his son died in a construction accident. He literally fell to his death and everything. So I imagine that it is possible that family members could have seen that play and not agreed with all the depictions, because a number of those people are no longer around, and I haven't heard of any challenges. But to your point, Nick, I guess they could make challenges in that way and everything. And even some people that are still around. I think Berry Gordy is still living and all in that space. And I'm sure that he could make some claims, because they're, and Smokey Robinson, because they were definitely, and even the, ironically, their manager, who was of, and they just gave it a kind of a surface mention that he was of Jewish descent and everything, that and was painted as one that was kind of guiding their career, but also being a controlling factor in their career. And I'm sure that there are some people that might disagree with some of the portrayals.
Yeah, I met Barry Gordy about 20 years ago. You know, he was looking to, he had a lot of money back then. And of course, he has more now. But the thing is, he founded Motown Records and just made a boatload of money off of Motown Records, you know. So he had estate issues even 20 plus years ago. I didn't do anything for him. I talked to some of his attorneys, and they basically handled the estate issues for Barry Gordy. But the name, image, and likeness, which is a new, sort of a new but old concept, could create some problems for groups like the Temptation. In other words, you create a lawsuit if you want to create a lawsuit. Okay, so if they say, well, you misrepresented this, usually the producers will get releases from family members before they put on a play like that, so they don't have to deal with those legal issues.
So yesterday, the report on Biden's, he had classified documents in his garage, and they appointed a special prosecutor. And the prosecutor issued his report. I'm sure everybody's aware of this, where he said Biden can't be prosecuted. He didn't do anything sufficiently illegal, but he's an old man with a bad memory. And which led to Biden having an angry press conference saying,
and speaking of that, and I hope Nick comes back and everything, but speaking of that, but I'd love to hear Jatovi's thoughts. But one of the things I was going to mention, and maybe this is a case where people can be angry and want to say that there is defamation going on in the part of countries and everything, because apparently there is a recent announcement, and apparently two very popular places. I have been to the islands, but I haven't been to either Jamaica and the Bahamas. But apparently they are pushing back, and this came out today, against U.S. travel warning, because they are saying that, because the U.S. is saying that both of those countries, which we know are very popular if you're going on cruises, if you're going on other kind of trips, are unsafe for tourists because of rampant crime and poor access to medical services. So in a renewed travel warning that came out last month, the U.S. State Department urged would-be sun and sand seekers from staying away from two of the most popular Caribbean beach destinations. And they're talking about the violent crimes such as home invasions, armed robbery, sexual assault, and homicides, and all along those lines. And of course, the people that are in the government of those areas are like, our numbers are down from what they used to be. Yes, they do admit that they've had some numbers that are high, but they're down, and definitely you should still come and visit our places and all along those lines. But I just wanted your notions, because even the Jamaican Constabulary Force, which I guess is their version of police, said that there were 83 murders between January 1st and February 3rd this year. That seems like a high amount and everything, but they say that that's a drop from last year when there were 109 total murders during that same period. And the Bahamian Prime Minister, Philip Davis, responded to the advisories about travel to his country, stressing that the government is alert, attentive, and proactive to ensure that Bahamians remain a safe and welcoming destination. So I would think that would be a case where maybe there's some cases for the notion of being defamed as a country and everything. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts around that, because definitely that was something that I saw, was that the State Department is saying, hey, yeah, I know y'all have loved going to the Bahamas and going to Jamaica. Don't go there anymore. It's a little bit unsafe.
I have no evidence of this, but I'm guessing that 83 murders is a lot for a little island, but I'm guessing a lot of that is gang related, and probably doesn't directly impinge on tourists. In California, we still have a ton of pot murders in Central, and even though pot is legal, the ranchers still kill each other fairly regularly.
And apparently one of the things they're saying, and I definitely want to hear from Jatovia, and Sasha wants to jump in, but they're saying that tourists should keep a low profile, be aware of their surroundings, avoid secluded places or situations, and avoid walking or driving at night. If confronted by a robbery attempt, do not attempt to physically resist, and do not bring firearms or ammunition while traveling to Jamaica, including stray rounds, shells, or empty casings. The State Department says the penalties for carrying firearms and or ammunition, even inadvertently, are severe and can, of course, include lengthy prison sentences. And we've even seen that in some cases where people have had lengthy sentences when they've gone to visit European countries as well. I mean, I think that's part of what happened, because she had some pot related stuff with her.
A lot of the
with Brittany Griner.
A lot of the visitors to Jamaica, Bahamas are going to be coming off of cruise ships.
Right.
And I like taking cruises because I'm lazy. You only have to unpack once. The hotel moves with you. It takes you places. But my secret of cruises is the destinations they take you to mostly suck because they drop you off at an island. You've got 4 hours, 6 hours to see the island. You don't really get a good sense of the island. And, you can maybe buy some trinkets, but it's the destinations are mostly not what makes a cruise fun. What's fun is just being lazy as heck and being on a moving hotel.
It is a moving hotel. Jacoby, what's your thoughts about this notion? And do you think that there is any claim that Bahamas and Jamaica can make that it is being overblown? Because apparently this was a travel advisory. And like I said, they are pushing back, and they were pushing back earlier today. But what is your take on this? Because I do know that it is a popular destination for many a person to go and everything. But I just wanted your take on this notion. I don't hear you. I don't know what you're going on with your mic. Yeah, still don't hear him.
For some odd reason, StreamYard decided to change my mic. I don't know why, but StreamYard is fun right now. But there's nothing wrong with travel advisories. That's what is supposed to happen. I mean, there's a difference from being robbed in the country and being robbed outside of the country. So having a travel advisory, because other countries can have travel advisories for the U.S., which they do. So there's nothing wrong with having a travel advisory. That's different from a defamation. And the interesting part is, I guess, yes, there are particular people that are, I guess, immune from the defamation stuff, but there are also there's a whole industry that's immune from it as well. Battle rap, and also rap within itself, and some of the diss tracks that have been going on. So there's no defamation that's going to come out of the YouTube. There's a whole YouTube reaction setup that reacts to not only the songs, but actually even some of the characters of the individuals, because there's actually a big kerfuffle in the whole industry right now over the Benzino and Eminem diss. But yeah, to get back to the point of travel advisories being similar to defamation, I don't think so. It's just unless they're legitimately defaming the Bahamas or Jamaica or wherever you're trying to go to, kind of like Trump did and calling them S-hole countries.
Right.
I don't think there's an issue with saying, well, there's a rise in crime. This is the information that you need to know about when you go to these locations. Because once again, there's a difference between being robbed in the country and being robbed outside of the country.
Yeah, definitely on that, I can agree. Just coming back to what we were talking about earlier with Biden and everything, and I definitely want to hear from Sasha, because there have been a lot of people, and Rick kind of alluded to it earlier, that are looking at these gaffes on a regular basis and all in that spaces, and there's a lot of push against Biden because he keeps making these mistakes, and even when he tries to correct his mistakes, he sometimes digs himself into a further hole and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on that, because I know that you've been definitely thinking that even Nikki could be the candidate and all along those lines. But there is a lot of people that are concerned that Mr. Biden, President Biden, is making too many mistakes, and as definitely Nick put it, he is a gentleman in his early 80s, but I just wanted your take on that, Sasha, and if this is going to impact the election at all.
Well, one fact is obvious. He's an old man, and he looks old, and he acts long. He talks as an old man. There's no surprises. He is over 80 and 81, probably 82 will be next year. So it's a normal thing now. So here's a choice. You vote for an old man with all this, what comes with territory, or you vote for a lying criminal like Trump. And you just have to select what's a lesser evil, and it's all there is to it.
Yep, and that's what a lot of people are saying that they're doing, is voting for the lesser of the two evils and everything. But what's
interesting? Well, the interesting piece, even talking about the gaffes themselves, the media, Trump makes more gaffes than anybody, but yet we never talk about the gaffes of Trump. It's because the theme that we have at this moment, the messaging that we have at this moment, is that you have an old man, and that's what Joe is not going to be able to get. Biden is not going to be able to get past the age. He's going to, if he wants to work on that, he's going to have to buy into that and sell age as being a positive thing, because right now they're selling it as being feeble-minded, being slow and horrible, and just not knowing things and forgetting things, which a lot of it is untrue. Yes, he makes gaffes, but most of it's dealing with his speech impediment, which is stuttering. So it's just it's all due to messaging again, because again, if you look at what Trump says and all the how many times did he say Nikki Haley when he was meeting Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, I like Trump said yesterday. He said, "Yeah, I'm an elderly man, but so what? I liked him, at least talking about it, and the choices between an elderly man with 47 years of political experience, 20 more years than any other president ever, versus Trump, an old man with, very little political experience and just a disastrous, he was America's worst. He lost more money between 1985 and 2015 than any other American. So the choice is, between two old men, and one of them's an asshole and the other one is highly experienced.
Something that he could do, but I don't think he would ever do it if I was his political consultant, Rick, is I would sell the team rather than him. In other words, because as everybody knows, it's not just Biden making the decision. He relies very heavily on Anthony Blinken, his Secretary of State, and all the people around him. If he was smart, which I don't think he's that smart, looking at his his law school record, he would start, or if his advisors were smart, say, Joe, look, if you try to sell yourself to the American public, they're going to see an old man and you're not going to vote. Sell who you surround yourself with, your team. Bring in Anthony Blinken, bring in some of the young people, the Secretary of Transportation, bring all these people together and show that you have a team.
Hey, Nick, isn't part of the problem with that is that he has sometimes hidden the team or not given the team as much responsibilities? Because that's part of the things that I've heard with Kamala, is that people have seen her given responsibilities like with the migrant issues, but they've not had any teeth with the issue and how they're going to deal with it or what enforcement ability she's going to have. So you can tell her that she's going to be the head of migrant control, or she's going to be the head of drugs. But if there's no teeth to what you're doing, then what is the point of that? And the same thing with Blinken and everything. So isn't that part of the problem, is that, he had this great team, but is he really giving the team enough leeway? Because if I use the basketball analogy, you can be the best point guard in the world. I'm proud to say that my alma mater, we have a great point guard, Tyler Kolek, and everything, but he distributes the ball really well to the rest of the players. And I don't know that Joe does a good job of distribution.
No, he doesn't. See, politicians are so egocentric by their nature that to sell a team concept is a change. It's a paradigm shift. So for him to change all of a sudden, and no one's ever done that, is say, hi, I'm Joe Biden, I'm your president. Let me introduce you to my team. Here's Anthony Blinken, here's Kamala Harris, and we're going to all discuss the issues. And he brings in most of these people are hidden in the background and you never see them. And so what he needs to really do is to bring his team forward and sell the team concept, just like we're having the Super Bowl in the United States. Okay. And everybody talks about Patrick Mahomes, this, and, Mr. Irrelevant, that, but let me tell you, they're not the ones that are going to win the game. It's going to be a team effort. You have to have a defensive line, an offensive line. You have to have the whole team together. You have to have receivers. So he really needs to have a paradigm shift if he wants to win. Sell the team and get Taylor Swift on board.
He could compare his team to Trump's team, because Trump appointed a bunch of creeps, and anybody competent Trump appointed soon left. And then there are like a dozen people, like Rex Tillerson, a pretty competent guy, leaves, says Trump was a moron. Everybody who left said, no, Trump's an idiot. He's got a short attention span.
So
People who didn't leave all are indicted.
You're right. They left her indicted. But like I said, Biden has a big advantage in the team concept if he's willing to use it and press that advantage, where Trump does not. Trump, you're right. Tillerson, when I saw this guy appointed, I was going, wow, the guy had a ExxonMobil, a CEO. This guy's got some savvy behind him, and all of a sudden he gets a fight with Trump and he loses and he leaves. And that's a typical Trump. If you're good, you're out of there. If you're bad, you stay and you get indicted. Okay. So Biden doesn't have really great advisors who'd say, look, Joe, if you try to sell yourself, you're going to lose. If you
He's
sell
got
it,
one good advisor. Obama has started poking at the campaign, saying you got to, pull it together here.
yeah,
So
right.
I think honestly, he still has to sell himself. Even in your analogy with the Super Bowl that's going on Sunday with the Chiefs and the 49ers, everybody's buying into who? Everybody's buying into the quarterback. Even though you can say, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, he's this. They're still talking about Brock Purdy, and they still got to buy into if Brock Purdy can get it done. Brock Purdy has a dynamic team behind him with McCaffrey and Deebo Samuels and Ayuk and all the other individuals there. But you still have to buy into Brock Purdy. So you can bring in the team, and I love the selling of the team. But I think they have to, with Joe, they have to buy into the old as a compliment, and they have to really sell the old as a positive, as well as the team showing, hey, I may be old, but you know what? And they have to do self-deprecation, because that would help as well. Because right now everybody's buying into Trump. They're not buying into Trump.
What all this is does is that the betting odds on Trump, on Biden getting elected, went way down yesterday. They went from plus 170 to plus 235. So I don't think you can. It's very hard to make money betting on sports, because the bookies, they do their research. They know what the lines are.
They know the lines and everything. Hey, Rick, hold on a second, because I want to get something that is one of Nick's favorite topics and everything, because it came up in the news yesterday and all along those lines. Because apparently, and this comes back to another high court making some rules that might make it to the U.S. Supreme Court, but Hawaii's highest court, because we know that there have been conversations around nations seceding around migrants, but apparently the highest court in Hawaii has ruled that the Second Amendment right, as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court, does not extend to Hawaii citizens. They have cited the spirit of aloha. So in the ruling, which was penned by Hawaii Supreme Court Justice Todd Edens, the court determined that states retain the authority to require individuals to hold proper permits before carrying firearms in public. The decision also concluded that the Hawaiian Constitution broadly does not afford a right to carry firearms in public places for self-defense, further pointing to the spirit of aloha and even quoting the TV drama The Wire. So apparently Hawaii is saying that they are not the same as the rest of the United States, and that they have got different rules, and this came up yesterday. So this came up in the rule, and I know you've been a critic sometimes of the Second Amendment, and others have as well. So definitely you're going to love this quote, but they say Article 1, Section 17 of the Hawaii Constitution mirrors the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. We read those words differently than the current United States Supreme Court. We hold that in Hawaii, there is no state constitutional right to carry a firearm in public, and this is the quote, "The spirit of aloha clashes with a federally mandated lifestyle that lets citizens walk around with deadly weapons during day-to-day activities." It adds, "The history of the Hawaiian island does not include a society where armed people move about the community to possibly combat the deadly aims of others." So they're definitely arguing against the notion that everybody has a right to a gun.
Yeah, that sounds really good, but that'll argument will lose. In other words, I'm kind of shocked that somebody could actually make it to the Supreme Court of Supreme Court of the state of Hawaii and not realize that Article 10 is not going to apply, and that the minute that gets appealed to the Supreme Court, forget it. It's down the toilet, So it sounds really good on paper, but at the end of the day, that thing gets shot down.
Maybe Hawaii's betting. Maybe
Yeah.
they're betting that the NRA is in disarray. You know, they're being sued. They had to declare bankruptcy. Wayne LaPierre is leaving leadership because he wants to save his ass. So, you know, if the NRA is they're the ones who push against all this stuff. So
Well,
maybe
I love this other quote that they have as part of their argument because it says a freewheeling right to carry guns in public degrades other constitutional rights. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness encompasses a right to freely and safely move in peace and tranquility. So I don't think anybody can argue with that argument and everything. So definitely it sounds like a very legitimate argument, but I hear what you're saying that once it goes to the Supreme Court, and it is definitely a conservative Supreme Court, the fact that you quoted The Wire and did some other popular things, you will probably get shot down by this conservative Supreme Court, because I can definitely agree with that. But I just found it fascinating that Hawaii is going against the gun culture and everything. But I don't know if Jacoby's got any thoughts around this notion, or if you got any further legal conversations, Nick.
I just think it's dead on arrival at the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean,
but somebody's got to take it to the Supreme. Somebody has to have standing in Hawaii.
Yeah, but there's always some organization or somebody who's going to bring it before the Supreme Court of the United States. Obviously, if it got that far to the state of Hawaii, then there has to be a plaintiff and defendant on it. I'll have to go look at that. It's a state law procedure. So, but then the appeal from the Supreme Court of the state of Hawaii, the direct appeal is to the United States Supreme Court. So the next person who'll listen to it will be the U.S. Supreme Court. So there's a good chance that'll end up in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, because it is a case and controversy that is of highly public interest, and obviously it goes against the grain of the Second Amendment. And if you read the 10th Amendment just doesn't apply. So where are they basing it on? That the Hawaiian laws overrule the U.S. laws based on what? Nothing. You know, so I think.
So,
Nick, would it go against? I think, would it be dead on arrival based on the Washington case? What was it? Scalia? Was it Scalia? The what's her name? The Washington case for handguns that said handguns were a right. That was the only protected gun up under the Constitution. What was that case? Cannot remember the name. It just left me.
Yeah, but again, that's doctrine by a court. You know?
No, but that was a Supreme Court case. I'm wondering if that's going to knock down the other one.
I don't know. We have a couple of constitutional scholars that we bring on. Carla Pratt. We have to bring her back again. She's a professor of constitutional law at the University of Oklahoma, and also Adam Lamparero, who's a professor of constitutional law at Georgia College.
The Heller case. It was the Heller case. That was the one.
So maybe Hawaii is buying 3 years of positive PR for tourism, because you look at the closest places to Hawaii, California, 40 million people who mostly hate guns, would love to vacation in a gun-free place. Japan, I'm sure Japan does not love guns. And
they don't have.
This will take 3 years to get to the Supreme Court, I would guess, get through it, and in those 3 years they can do a lot of tourism.
Yeah, well, you know, when Mark and you guys were talking about countries like Jamaica, before I go travel to a country, I go see. There's actually, you can check violent crime and homicidal crime versus the U.S. per 100,000 people, and this is where I found Morocco to actually be 4 times safer than the United States of America. So, and Spain was 10 times safer than the U.S. So the U.S. doesn't rank really high when it comes to a dangerous place to live and travel around. It's actually certainly in the pack, and maybe in the upper end of the pack. And there's certain other countries you can go to.
Nick, I had a question to ask you about that, because you've said that a couple of times, and I get it and everything, and it's definitely been on my wish list. You know, we have a lady that does a show here, Coco, and she's got a business partner that is in Morocco. But what I know about Morocco is it's not that far from Algeria, which means it's not that far from the Middle East. So is there no concern at all that some of the things that are going on in the Middle East could spill over into these countries and everything? Or are they too far removed that it wouldn't spill over?
They're way on the western coast of Africa, and everything that's happening in the Middle East is way on the eastern coast of Africa. So they're really not influenced.
I think they're almost 2,000 miles apart, because they're on the Mediterranean's 3,000 miles across, and they're on one end of the Mediterranean.
Right.
Fair enough.
it's
I was
just
just trying to get my bearings and everything in that sense. So that's good to know that they are far enough. Just really quickly, and this is us pivoting the conversation just slightly, but it is a thing about leadership and all along those lines. So I'm actually going to ask Sasha, and I'm sure he'll be talking about it on Ukraine, Russia, and China and everything. But Sasha, what is the general thoughts around this new leadership? Because I did hear that there is a new leader in Ukraine, that Zelensky has hired somebody new. He got rid of the old general, and apparently this general has a negative nickname. But if you're in the middle of a war, you might want a butcher to be the person that is running your cause and everything. But I just wanted your thoughts about the new leadership, and I did hear that he had the nickname the butcher and everything. But I just wanted your thoughts about the new leadership.
I will rather talk about old leadership.
Okay.
General Zaluzhny.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened with General Zaluzhny is that he is a regional thinker. He's a great strategist. And when he made his plan at the end of 22, when Ukraine was successful to retake Kharkiv and Kherson, and it was basically on the verge of having a landslide victory and actually evict Russians from Ukraine altogether. However, what's happened is that, first of all, there was a winter time during which it's very difficult, if not impossible, to have an attack to continue. But further, much more important factor was that his plan was built on the assumption that Western countries, including US, will continue to supply the modern weapons and including, of course, high-range missiles and planes and many other things which were discussed. There were several instances. For example, they had in Germany, little town of Ramstein, where the American military base is located, and they were meeting at least once a month, sometimes more often than that, where different weapons were discussed and so on. So his strategy was built on these assumptions. And when this was, number one, delayed, number two would come, but insufficient numbers. In the meantime, that allowed Russians to fortify substantially their lines of defense in south and bring the minefields of incredible depth that nothing like that ever been erected in the world. And all that had to adjust Zelensky's plans substantially, because if he would continue with the original plan, he would lose his army. There would be attack, which would be repelled, and the Ukrainian army would be destroyed and killed all of them. So he decided that the most important asset what Ukraine has is its army. And to preserve the army became number one goal of Zaluzhny. With Zelensky, he had to justify to people and to Western partners why this attack, which was announced and that was not successful, somebody has to be found responsible. And the easiest way to do it, blame it on top general. Who is the top general? General Zaluzhny. So there were obviously a huge fiasco on Western help, specifically United States. You can discuss for hours why it's happened, because of the Republicans, because of the Senate, because of the House, because of all kinds of things. Pentagon recently announced that they cannot even service the weapons that they already delivered to Ukraine. And you know why? Pentagon said, we have no money. Okay, so all the world, including Middle East and Hamas and China and Iran and everybody else, what did you hear? What Pentagon said? They have no money. Wow.
Speaking of no money, I also know that because we talked about it yesterday, me and you, that you watched and heard the interview, and apparently he was rambling, saying that he did not invade Ukraine, but Ukraine invaded him. So I was wondering if you could share with our audience and with others that are listening your thoughts about the Tucker Carlson interview and all along those lines, because I did find it fascinating that apparently he's saying that Russia did not invade Ukraine, but somehow Ukraine invaded Russia, and how that's even possible in his mind is beyond me. But I'd love to hear your analysis of this Tucker Carlson interview, because we talked about it a little bit off air yesterday.
You put me in a difficult position. You want me to repeat lies of both Mr. Putin and Mr. Carlson. Carlson is a pathological liar, and he's not a journalist. He's a liar. That's all what he is. Putin is, of course, he's a liar. He doesn't lie as often as Trump, simply because he doesn't talk as much as Trump. But if he would talk as much as Trump, then he would lie just as much as Trump. So pick up the lesser evil.
Sasha, you're being nice. Let's be honest. Tucker Carlson is a bigot who's being used as a tool for Putin to spread propaganda. That's all it is. The worst part about it, think of where we were just in 2012 when Obama and Mitt Romney had debates. And Mitt Romney jumped up and all the Republicans jumped behind him. And Mitt Romney said that Obama was afraid to say that Russia was our number one existential threat. Now, go just even 4 to 10 years later, you're looking at the actual Republican Party, Fox News included, and the right-wing media pushing Putin's propaganda, cheering literally at rallies, quoting and saying that Mr. Putin is okay, and utilizing Tucker Carlson because he is a true bigot. He actually lost jobs for being a bigot, but he's going over to actually use his platform to push more crap coming out of Putin's mouth, to say that, oh, well, they were just another part. No, they were the ones who invaded and that were killing individuals in Ukraine. They are the aggressors. You don't go to the aggressors and say, well, they're just really nice guys. You got to listen. No, it's crap. It's propaganda, and that's all it is.
It's so freaking
I'm sorry,
crazy.
Had to be.
I
know you want to say it.
The Soviet Union and now Russia have been propagandizing America for 100 years. And Republicans used to be the loudest people screaming about Russia's Soviet propaganda. And now they're totally in bed and just laying back and taking it from Putin. And
Yep.
it's mystifying.
Speaking of propaganda,
But before you even move on, Mark, but
Yeah.
just think about that though. Not only 10 years ago, we were saying Russia was bad. Now the Republicans are saying Russia's good. Fox News used to go on.
Okay, one quick question. Why? What
It's
every
Trump.
single said. Exactly. Only one person who essentially he took over a Republican Party. He controls it completely. And it's a party of Trump. It's not Republican Party really. And that's why I wish that they will lose a landslide election. Everything, the presidency, the House, the Senate, everything else. So Trump will become a history. I mean, he will spend some time in jail. Yeah, he will go bankrupt on everything what he has. But Republican Party has to start rebuilding itself from the scratch. They have to find out what's the reason for them to exist, what they can offer to. Because today, all what they're offering is election is stolen, and let's make America great again. There is no single original idea that I've ever heard. Rick.
no, you got a good point in everything. We've got two more things that I want to get to just really quickly, because I know we've got the Russia, Ukraine, China show coming up very shortly. But I was just curious, and this is for everybody. And then there's a story about economics that I wanted to get to as well. And then we'll get out of here in the next 10 minutes and everything. But how easy is it going to be to move 1 million people? Because apparently that's what Netanyahu is trying to do. Is that he's saying he wants his army to put together a plan to evacuate the million people that exist there in Rafia and everything. So apparently that's how many people there. So apparently it's a very small area with a very condensed population and everything. But I was just wondering y'all's take on that, and what will the plan be to get all of those people out? Because apparently that's what they want to do before they launch the invasion of that particular city. But that seems like that could be a very mounting task.
You got two things going on. One, you got Hamas, terrible people, hard to eradicate, radicalized population, and you got Netanyahu who's trying to save his own ass, because when the war is over, according to a lot of people, so is Netanyahu's career.
Yep.
As much as you're right about Netanyahu, but don't forget that he has a unified government, national government, that Netanyahu is part of it. So Netanyahu cannot dictate all others that, okay, here's what I want, just go and do it. He can't do that. So he is definitely supported by other members of the coalition government. Number two, I think all this idea is a great development compared to what's happening before, when unfortunately a lot of civilians being killed, again, because of the Hamas, because they're hiding behind the civilians, and it's next to impossible to avoid completely. It's reduced. The Israelis are trying very hard to reduce the civilians' deaths, but to eliminate that is impossible. So if these people will be moved, that will spare their lives at least. And then you see, the way it is now, there is, as I said before in our programs, there must be unconditional capitulation of Hamas. Now, about Palestinians, Hamas had at their heyday, say around 30, maybe 40,000 strong army. Who do you think are the rank and files of this army? Not the top generals, but the rank and files, the 30, 35, maybe 40,000. They are all recruits among Palestinians. There is no other way to create that army as to recruit Palestinians. And they are being recruited. Okay, you can analyze it. Well, they have no choice, because if they will not agree to be recruited, they will be killed, and their families will be killed, and so on and on. And probably it's valid, and I would agree with that. But it doesn't change the picture that whatever there is a population of Palestine. It's a potential reinforcement of Hamas army. They can bring another 10,000, another 20,000, another 40,000. They can teach them very quickly how to use these rifles and grenades and so on. Unfortunately, that's a fact. So you have to deal with all that. There is no easy solution.
No easy solution at all.
Just real quick, I think Rick was first, though.
Go ahead.
So the Gaza Strip is the size of 6 Manhattan Islands. On a workday, you can cram 8 million people onto Manhattan Island. You're talking about 1 million people in 6 Manhattan. There's room to move them, as long as you can get them food and water and toilets and shelter. And will they do that? Will they come through and provide them the stuff they need? That remains to be seen.
Yeah,
I don't think there is I don't think there is there's no legitimate way to move 1 million people. You can't just shift people around, especially after what's been going on. And where are you going to shift them to? Yeah, it's the size of 3 Manhattans, but you have 60% of it destroyed in one side, and you want to shift them to that destruction area. But then even the ideal, if you're saying, like Sasha's point, is Sasha's saying that there are 20 to 30,000 Hamas individuals. There are 20 to 30,000 people who are now dead from this. So, and if there's still 20, how many more individuals? So there's just, it's just impossible to shift people. We can in a utopian or an idealistic view of, hey, we can just take these people and move. That's just not practical.
They already did it once at great cost to the Palestinians. They pushed them out of the north, said you'll be safe in the south. They weren't really safe in the south, but they depopulated the north, blew up the north, and now they want to move them again. and it's pretty terrible. These are people who had, nice apartments,
But
and now they've got maybe a mattress and a bag of clothes.
Yeah,
that's
just really quickly.
That's my
Excuse me.
point. Is
In
that you tried to shift
1945,
the
a lot
runway.
of Germans had nice apartments. And you know
Yeah,
how many people were killed in these nice apartments and raped and so on. So
Sasha.
there's no talk
Sasha.
about nice apartments.
No, hold on a second.
In Germany, 80% of the private dwellings were destroyed during the course of the war. They were devastated, and they kind of they brought it on themselves. Obviously,
we are talking about what's going on now, and what's going on now is completely different than what happened when we're talking about Nazi Germany and the movement, and what happened with the Jewish individuals there. It is different now because of the technologies and everything and the situation that's happening. So when there are some similarities, but we have to also recognize that it is a different situation and a different time now, especially even when you look at the social medias to everything that is happening.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Jacoby, just really quick.
we tend to get just this real quick point, Mark.
Yeah.
We tend to get distracted by bringing up this is what happened then, and why are we not doing? We can't get distracted on that. But what Rick pointed out, when they shifted the people, there were 20 to 30,000 that got killed, and then 60% of the whole area that they're talking about sending people back to is destroyed, riddled with dead bodies and individuals that you can't find. And now you want to shift people back, and it's not even going to be safe for them, even taking out the bombings and the shootings and even Hamas being there. So now you're talking about shifting them back to an area that's already destroyed, riddled with disease, dead, and everything else. So it's not practical.
No,
And
hold
there's
on,
gotta
hold
be
on.
another better
I
way.
hear what you're saying, Rick. I mean, Jacoby, but just really quickly, Rick, because we got to wrap up because we got Sasha shows coming up and everything. One of the things I was going to bring up, and it's unrelated to what we're talking about, but just really quickly, and we can bring it up on Economics Monday, and then I want to get a prediction from everybody here on the network, but on not economics, but on the media show Monday. Is there was a young lady that has become a TikTok sensation because apparently she is breaking down in tears because she's got 2 degrees. And I know Nichols loved this story, and we will set it up for Monday, but she's getting a lot of TikTok responses because she has gone out and is in tears because she's trying to find a job, and she's going to these minimum wage jobs with her 2 degrees, and she's having a whole lot of rejection letters that she's facing. So it has become the TikTok sensation because she is a Gen Z graduate, so one of those young people that's got multiple degrees but is having a hard time finding just any sort of work and everything along those lines. So maybe we'll talk about that on Media Monday on Monday, and that notion of that sensation that is there in the media. And then really quickly, because Sunday is the Super Bowl, I would love to hear from everybody here. I'll start with you, Rick, since you're in California, and I definitely want to hear from Sasha as well, and Jacoby, because we've only got a minute to go. So this is round robin style. I'm picking Kansas City to win. Who are you picking? And then let's just hear your prediction.
I hope Taylor Swift wins. So, and I hope she marries the guy and they have huge kids. She's 6 foot tall. He's 6'5". So.
Perfect.
So we got 2 Kansas City. Who are you taking, Sasha? You're a betting man.
Same thing, the Taylor Swift.
Kansas
Funny
City,
thing
Taylor
is,
Swift. It's on you.
I mean, I would love. I'm a Dolphins fan. My brother is a Kansas City fan, so I can't really stand Kansas City because I'm a Dolphins fan, and I've got to be different from my brother. And then everybody, the odds makers are picking San Francisco, oddly enough, but everybody under the sun is picking Kansas City. I'm going to take San Francisco, not because I like a lot of, I hope Christian McCaffrey gets it because, playing for the Panthers and he deserves it. Nice dude. I don't like Joey Bosa. He's a racist guy. But I like Taylor Swift a lot. I do like Taylor Swift, the things that she does. And I wish I could pick Kansas City, but just because everybody in the world is picking KC, I'm going to be different. I'm going to go ahead and pick San Francisco.
I'm pulling for a good game where the lead goes back and forth because a lot of Super Bowls have sucked.
Me
Yeah,
too.
that's very true. That's very true. Hopefully, it's a good game. We got 3 for Kansas City, 1 for San Francisco. Of course, Jacoby's got to be the contrary. So we're going to get out of here and we're going to have a conversation around Russia, Ukraine, and China with Sasha that will be getting ready to start shortly. So another lively discussion. Glad that I was able to moderate it, and we'll be back here again doing this again on Monday. So I'll catch y'all at that time.
Bye bye.
Bye.